I've been running my own clothing brand for the past 8 years, and I've done hundreds of clothing brand reviews where clothing brands will send me their brand. I do a deep dive into all of the little dimensions of their brand, what's going on with their brand, and I give them the best advice that I possibly can. And recently I did a brand review for a clothing brand inside of the Apparel Success Mastermind. And this brand review was unlike any of the others that I've ever done before. Now, the reason why this brand review was so different wasn't because he had things in his brand that I'd never seen before. It was because after the clothing brand review, he sent me a message that he was actually shutting down his brand. And after he told me this, we talked about it for a while, and he went into all of the reasons why he's deciding to shut down his clothing brand after receiving this brand review. And I just thought it was so important to bring these lessons to this channel for you, because I think that a lot of clothing brands that are watching these videos are going through a lot of the same issues that he was experiencing within his own brand. So let's get into it. Apparel Success is sponsored by my buds over at BrandCrowd. BrandCrowd's a logo maker tool. You type in the name of the logo that you want, smack that enter button. Thousands of logos will come up. You choose the logo that you like, then you can edit and refine that logo as long as you want for free until it's perfect. I made this Hundo P design for my own clothing brand using BrandCrowd. If you're interested, head over to brandcrowd.com/apparel success and you can get up to 66% off at checkout. All right, so once a month inside of the Apparel Success Mastermind, we do live streams. And inside of these live streams, they're 2 hours long. And the first hour, I like to do a spotlight brand review of one of the members' clothing brands inside of the group. So we get into this brand review, and for a straight hour, I give him advice on every little detail of his clothing brand as it is now. We go into his website. I talk about his cover image, his product mock-ups, his homepage, his Our Story page, and even what he's written in his Our Story page and how he can improve it. We get into his social media strategy and every little technical detail of his clothing brand. And all the feedback that I'm giving him is advice that will help him improve the clothing brand that he's already created. And this is the key point here. Because after the brand review, he reached out to me and he let me know, thank you for all of the feedback. It was really great. I took it into consideration, and I've actually decided that my brand as a whole is something that I want to shut down. Now, this is the $1 million lesson you're going to get out of this video. The issue with his clothing brand wasn't some technical issue with his brand. It wasn't something that he was doing on his website. It wasn't something that he was doing with his social media strategy. He was posting 3 times a day. He was trying his best to create amazing content. The issue with his brand was the brand concept as a whole. He was trying to optimize something that shouldn't exist. This here is such an important lesson for so many clothing brands that are starting up. And this is a really bitter pill to swallow. It's something that not a lot of people want to hear, but it's something that deeply needs to be considered because of something known as opportunity cost. Growing a successful clothing brand takes a ton of time, a ton of work, and sometimes even a lot of money. And if you're going to invest a year, 2, 3, or 4 years into a brand to grow it to the best of your ability, then it's important that whichever lane you're deciding to go down here is one that you've deeply worked through. It's something that you've deeply researched and you understand that you're creating a brand for a group of people where there's a high probability that they will receive it well and that you're actually creating something that people want. Because what a lot of clothing brand owners do is they get really deeply involved in their own emotion around something. They think that, just because they've created a clothing brand, it's going to do really well and that people will see the value in it. But clothing brands are just like any other business where there needs to be an exchange of value. And so just because you see value in something doesn't mean that the market will see value in something. Opportunity cost is where all of the time that you're putting into something could have been spent working on something else. So every week, every month, every year that you're working on your clothing brand that you've chosen to work on, all of that time could be spent working on a completely different project. And this is the realization that this clothing brand owner had after receiving the brand review from me. He realized that even though there's all these little technical things that he could try to improve and work on, he realized that the brand as a whole was built on his own passions and his own disposition, but that the brand itself was going after a market that wasn't really begging for a clothing brand. And he's trying to create a clothing brand to force it into a market that doesn't necessarily want it. A great little metaphor for this would be like if you cooked the most perfect steak that looked really, really great, and you tried to sell it at a vegan restaurant. It doesn't matter how good technically that steak was cooked or how well it's marketed, that audience of vegans just simply won't want it. And that's what a lot of clothing brand owners do, is they try to polish something that just shouldn't exist to begin with. They're trying to optimize something that shouldn't exist to begin with. Now, you could argue here that if he continued to work on his brand and he made all the necessary changes that, you know, I was offering him, that eventually he'd sculpt his brand into something that people want. But after talking with him, it seemed like he'd put in a full effort, that even if he made these changes, it would get back minimal results that wouldn't really do as well as he wants it to. And he just used his own intuition to come to the conclusion that this brand that he had created wasn't something that he wanted to spend his time on for the next 2, 3, or 4 years moving forward. When you come to this crossroads, you have 3 options. You can either continue doing exactly what you're doing moving forward and just keep rolling with it forward. You can try and make changes and pivots to your brand to improve it, to hopefully start making sales in the future. Or you can close it down and you can work on a new project, suck out all of the lessons that you got from that experience, and start over again. And these are the 3 options that you have. And it's basically on you as a clothing brand owner to use your own intuition here to get a sense of what decision you want to make for your own brand. Now, it's really important that you're hearing the nuances in this message here, that unless you've given it a full effort, it doesn't mean that, oh, you posted a few times on Instagram, your brand didn't work, well, I should just shut it down. No, it's like if you've been working at this for 2 or 3 years and you've been grinding at it, you've been putting in work on social media, you've been trying to establish credibility, you've been gaining social proof for your brand, all of these different things, and you still aren't getting any sales at all for your brand, that's when you want to consider this. Because in those beginning stages, it's hard for any clothing brand starting up, even if you've got a brand that is potentially going to do really well in the future, it'll likely still take you 6 months to a year in order for you to get your brand off the ground. So this was a message that I thought was super important for a lot of clothing brands to hear, that most people likely won't tell you, is that there's no shame in coming to the realization that you've created something that just isn't optimal for an audience, that's not really offering anybody value, and it's okay to shut that down if that's a decision that you want to make. I know that it's really like sort of, it hurts your ego to ever want to shut that down, because that business that you first started is like your baby. But when it comes to the practical reality of what you're trying to do with your business and your life, it's an important thing to consider at a certain stage along your journey. And so the clothing brand owner that I did the review for has sent a video to just talk about this and share his reasons for it that, you know, I think will offer you even more value just at the end of this video here. And so, you know, kudos to him and his strength in order to do this and just realize where he's at and make changes, because so few clothing brands are willing to make those big changes within their business to get the results they're looking for. So here it is.
Hey everyone, it's JJ from the Apparel Success Mastermind. A few weeks ago, Rob gave me a brand review for my company Generation J, which was a Jewish Talmudic themed clothing brand. There was definitely some concerns with the brand. It wasn't performing as we hoped over the first 6-7 months after the first launch. And this brand review with Rob really put things into context for me, for the company. He gave me perspective and asked me very important questions that made me reconsider what I was doing in a very positive way. It made me realize that the brand was too niche in many ways, and that's why the customers weren't buying, and that certain demographics that the brand was catered to were not appreciating the brand. Rob didn't tell me this directly. Rob asked me the kind of questions he had to ask that allowed me to lead to this conclusion on my own, saving me thousands of dollars of future mistakes with different drops and really helping me out. I decided not to continue the brand because I'm also working on my manufacturing business and I'm in fashion school at FIT in New York, and realized that Generation J was not the best use of my financial resources moving forward, nor my time. So Rob really saved me here and gave me the chance to reflect. The biggest thing that I learned from this whole experience is that before you make your brand, before you invest in inventory and launch, or even put the time into all the concepts and the details, take a step back, do the research, and find a clear space in the market where this brand has some form of demand and a community that will appreciate it. Because I didn't do this, I acted off of a passion. I was on a trip exploring the Middle East in 2022. And at the time, I was feeling this connection to Judaism back to my roots. I was meeting lots of Jewish celebrities, public figures, artists, creatives, and I wanted to share this passion I had from the trip with the entire community and get very involved in the community. So I decided to make this brand, start planning the concepts right away, all the details, everything, do the launch, invest a lot of money in inventory, too much money, and yeah, did it all too fast. This entire brand review really taught me to slow things down, take a second, find an audience, create a formal business plan, and then really act on it and know everything you're going to do to an extent before you launch. Obviously, surprises will come, but have like a general idea of who you're trying to sell to. And if you're not selling to that specific audience, then change the brand, reconfigure. And if it's not working, then try something else, an entirely new concept. I was trying to force the concept for too long, and Rob helped me see my way out of that by offering an outside perspective on what's going on. So thank you, Rob, for opening my eyes and giving me this very meaningful and powerful learning experience. I'm never going to forget it. And you saved me lots of time and money and really taught me a great lesson. So thank you, Rob, and I'm excited to learn more from you in this group chat. And if anybody's interested, on a side note, of manufacturing services for their brands, for whatever garments, we have some new catalogs that are out. I'd be happy to show you. Just a quick little side note there. Back to the brand review. Thank you so much, Rob. Have a great night, everybody. Great day whenever you're watching. And I'm excited to learn and speak with all of you.
If you want to join the Apparel Success Mastermind, which is where all of this took place, you can watch the brand review that I did and other brand reviews in our archives of live streams. You can sign up at apparelsuccessmastermind.com. It's a monthly subscription where you get direct access to me. There's monthly live streams. All of my courses are in there and a community of other clothing brands. And I hope to see you inside. See you in the next one.